I was born and raised in Chicago, in in Lakeview neighborhood, which back in those days wasn't gentrified, and hung out at the corner of Paulina Barry, and hence the name PBC for the Paulina Barry Community. Founded that organization, which was basically a street gang. It's a transition between uh, hippies and what we used to call greasers. Greasers
And
were like supposedly badass, and hippies were just laid back and smoking dope all the time.
so that was around what year? Do you remember?
Let's see. I would say the mid 60s,
Uh-huh.
67, well, 67, 68.
Yeah. And how did you first get involved in Rising Up Angry if you were hanging out on the corner there?
Well, actually, it's got a little bit of a history behind it. Uh, there was uh, a hangout by Wrigley Field at a hamburger stand there. I think it was called Henry's Hamburgers, if I remember correctly. And there was an incident there where one of the people that hung out with us got shot in the back and was killed by the police. And that sort of organized a lot of us at that time to do something about the police uh, hassle, harassment. And there was a fellow that we met. I'm not sure how we met him. I think he just sort of showed up, but his name was Jim Penny. And he said, why don't we do some stuff that we should watch the police as much as the police watch us. We can follow them around. So we organized, had some cars, and that's what we did. Like on the weekends, we would go and follow the police. They get pretty upset about the whole situation. And so that was the beginning of sort of getting a little bit political size as to what was going on. Of course, the Vietnam War was a big issue. Um, it really, in the neighborhood that I hung out in, the you would if if you got uh, ended up in court, for example, for disorderly conduct or for some other charge against you, a lot of times what the judge would give you would be you got a choice. You could either go to jail or go into the army. So a lot of the people took going into the army, and what struck as something that was really different is that when they came back from being in Vietnam, they had a whole different attitude as to what what was going on. They said that Vietnam was bullshit. It was nothing terrible. It was terrible. That it was killing people, and what you wanted to do was basically go there and get back home as quick as possible. And they had a whole different attitude towards about gang banging and stuff like that. They weren't into any of that stuff anymore. And it was just us. And along at the same time, we 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 met some people from Rising Up Angry, and I don't quite remember how it happened, but there was a synergy that developed, and we were impressed by the people from Rising Up Angry. They were like us. They had a different viewpoint. They talked about helping people and people that struggle, and introduced us to some new ideas. I can remember uh, we ran a coffee shop that was set up by a pastor of a nearby church, and people from Rising Up Angry said, "Why don't you have a gathering over there? We'll show a movie." And we said, "Like what movie?" And they said, "Well, we got one about the Black Panther Party." And we ended up showing that movie, and that was the one Black Panther film that says, at the end, we're going to take over this motherfucker, something along those lines. And that really resonated with the people that were there. They said, "Yeah, we can do this shit." And uh, so that's how it became our interaction with Rising Up Angry. And at that time, I was in a band called Taxi. And one of the things that Rising Up Angry did is they put on people's dances. They gathered people from all over to come together and to have a good time, and not be talking about gang banging or any of this crazy shit like that. And we ended up playing at a lot of people's dances. We played at the Rising Up Angry organized at I think Great Lakes Naval Station a rally. We played there. We played in the outside concert at LaBar Woods that we had. Point being is that it was a time when there was just a lot going on, and that was our interaction with the people from Rising Up Angry. They they would come out to the neighborhood and hang out with you and give you some political insight, talk about things that you never thought about, expanded your horizons as to what the world was about.
And were you involved in any particular programs in Rising Up Angry? Like how deeply did you get involved?
Um, well, one part of Rising Up Angry was the newspaper, selling the newspaper, uh, which demanded that you stand on the corner and ask people to buy the newspaper. And we had some really good uh, people that put it out. Uh, I remember selling one issue was around Christmas time with a picture of Santa Claus behind bars, which we had one of the members of Rising Up Angry was dressed as Santa and was selling a newspaper and got arrested for selling it because he looked like Santa Claus. So I can remember and people were, "Wow, that's great," and whatnot. And sold a lot of papers that way. Yeah, I
Uh,
worked a bit on the newspaper. I worked on outreach. Uh,
what was outreach? Can-
Outreach was like what happened to, like I was talking about earlier, how people from Rising Up Angry would come out to you and out to gangbangers that were hanging out and talk to them and tell them about some of the issues like the war and how it affected them. And people would have questions about stuff like, what do you think about the mayor? And you gave some sort of answer that, and that you know it made sense to people. So it wasn't just bullshit. You could relate to them as to what it is. We had a really robust legal program that we would provide lawyers to people that had charges that they were needed to battle. Because a lot of times in the neighborhoods, you would have police that would come and just harass you all the time, kick you off the corner, tell you didn't belong there, even though you lived in the neighborhood, and they didn't even live in the neighborhood, and you weren't doing anything in terms of harm and whatnot. They'd arrest you, drive you to miles away, kick you out of the car with no money. You had to walk home. They had drop guns where they would, if they arrested you or something bad was done, I had a police officer, true story, that said to me, "Start running, I'll shoot you. And don't worry, I'll get away with it because I got a drop gun." And he showed me the little 32. And he said, "I'll just throw this by that." And he said, "You had to have a gun." I'm sure this technique is still practiced by police officers nowadays. It's no different.
So how'd you get away without getting shot?
I didn't run. So I'm not running. I'll take it, whatever here. So he just sucker punched me.
Got it. So, when you look back on your days in Rising Up Angry, are there any experiences or lessons or anything that stick out, that have sort of stuck with you over the years?
Well, uh, I think the times that we had the people's dances was big time playing at them. I've always remembered and cherished those moments. There was some rallies that went to that were energetic, had a lot of energy in it that made you feel that there was change was coming. I mean, we talked about revolution and whatnot, which wasn't, as it turned out from the viewpoint, it changed people's minds, and that was the revolution. Not the revolution was people in the streets fighting with guns. It was more of changing people's minds and how they looked at things. So it's Rising Angry was sort of kind of tied that together.
And was there a process, or again, looking back and Angry, that helped you grow or develop and helped that, kind of shaped your life as you went along?
Well, the big thing about what happened, at least in my view, for me, was that it changed my outlook on life. His life was much larger and bigger than what you thought. I mean, you grew up in a neighborhood, and that was your reality. You didn't know what was happening 3 blocks away or 4 blocks away because you just existed in this little uh, world, and having Rising Up Angry gave you some tools to look at. I mean, there were like books that you would read, uh, like Stud Circles books on working people, uh, stuff about Mao Zedong. This little red book, which has some brilliant insights into uh, how people react. And so it gave you a much broader horizon that I don't think I would have had just by if Rising Up Angry wasn't there.
And what is your life, like sort of a quick summary of what your life has been since Angry, your family, your work, and what you're doing now?
Well, I got married, had two kids, a boy and a girl. They're both doing great. I got two grandchildren now. It goes to show you my age. Uh, and I started a business after Angry. Did that for a number of years. Uh, my that was with my brother, and my brother and his family moved to Wisconsin, so we closed down the business, and I ended up working for the job with the city of Chicago, and that's spent 25 years doing that and retired.
And you're retired now.
That's correct.
And so I know the answer to this, but I assume that relationships that you developed in Angry you still
Yeah,
have them over the years.
I think all of us that are still left and up angry have sort of a bond between us, even if you didn't know the person real well, if you didn't work with them or anything like that. You know, the other thing too was that we ran a very sophisticated health center called Fitzy Engelstein. And that was a real community situation that brought people in and helped them with their health and whatnot, which back then wasn't done at all. And that took a lot of work. There was a lot of fundraising that we did. Um, yeah, so I think we just have this sort of energy amongst ourselves that Rising Up Angry was something that was important to people.
And if you had if you had the opportunity to talk to young people today who want to make change, social change, what would be the one thing, the one lesson, the one piece of
Don't
advice?
give up.
Okay. Um, Well, I think that's it. That's great. Anything else you care to say?
Well, I just, like I said, don't give up. Follow that the world, get emotional, that the world it can be made a better place for people.
Good
And
advice.
that's really what to understand that, excuse me, that uh, things you do, even though they seem small, can can have a big impact on uh, can have a big impact on people, which results in change. We always talked about change, that it was important and whatnot. And what you learn through life is that small changes can do big things.